Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. As promised in one of my previous videos, I was going to show you guys how to create a NAS slash sort of file server, cheap file server with pretty much parts that you might have or most people would have lying around in the house. So for this purpose, what we're going to be using today is an external USB powered hard drive, which I'm sure most of us would have at least one of these lying around the house, and your modem or router, Wi-Fi router, which of course anyone with an active internet connection would have one of these. So now, most routers, whether they'd be ADSL or fiber optic, which is also known as NBN in Australia, actually do have or this option. But if you want to be certain as to whether your device does support this functionality, the quickest way to find out is to look at the back of your modem slash router, and you'll see, if you do see a USB port at the back of your router, that means that your modem or router does actually have that functionality, does support that functionality. Now in this case, the router that I'm using, the device that I'm going to be using, is a TP-Link Archer D7. This was actually my old ADSL router. It's a dual band Wi-Fi router, pretty decent device, and I was actually using it until I eventually moved on to the fiber optic connection, or NBN as we call it here in Australia. But it's still a pretty decent router. But obviously this is only for the purpose of making this video. Now your network topology, based on what type of fiber optic you might have, would probably be different, but the basic principles are the same. And as I mentioned, even if you got, let's say that if you've got a high-end router, then chances are that it'll have all these fancy options. But even if you do have one of those standard OEM type routers that have been supplied by your ISP, most of them do actually support this functionality. So obviously, the first thing, even before you start, is to ensure that your router or modem has a USB port. And then the next thing, obviously, you're going to need for this to work is obviously a hard drive. Now, we're actually using this. So this, obviously, as you can see, it's actually a sort of a generic hard drive case that I've just bought off the internet, and I've got a 256 gig Samsung 2.5 inch SSD in there. But you can actually have different topology altogether, and if you got one of those the hard drive docking stations, I know some people might have them sitting around the house. They'll actually work just as well. Or if you had one of those bigger drive cases, 3.5 inch, the bigger PC desktop drive cases with a dedicated power, they will work just as well. But obviously, in this case, it actually makes the footprint a lot smaller, and it also sort of gives you the option to sort of sort of plug and play and move it around if you wish. So obviously, starting off, what we'll need to do is, the first thing is that you need to plug your device into your hard drive into the back of your router. So as you can see, the router is already plugged in. Obviously there's no network cables at the back, because this is obviously an experimental sort of scenario. But obviously you will have your internet your internet uplink connected, and most probably you'll have other devices connected to your router. So all you do is just plug plug the hard drive into the router. Now, if you do see, I know that some routers have a USB 3.0 support, and they obviously the USB port will actually be marked with a blue color. So if you do have a blue colored marked USB port, do plug the device into. I would recommend plugging the device into that port. But in this case, I believe that USB 2.0. I'm not sure. They might be 3.0. But obviously, one way you can confirm is to actually have a look, Google the model of your router or modem, and it'll tell you what sort of transfer speeds you can get from your the USB ports on your router. So let's just plug this in, and we'll see that once we plug it in, the USB light, as you can see, has come up. So which means it's detected the hard drive. So now then obviously the next step would be to then go onto the network config page, or the GUI, the graphical user interface of your router, and setting up the share on the router, which is, so obviously this is something we're going to do on a Windows machine. In this case, you can actually do it on your phone, but I would highly recommend actually doing it on a Windows machine. And once we've set up the share, it'll be an SMB share, so which obviously is compatible with multiple OSs, and you can even actually map that share to multiple devices around the house. It could be your TV or your Android box, even your phone, and so on and so forth. So obviously our hard drive. So pretty much everything is done at this end. Now the next step would be to actually configure the share. Now there's obviously a few factors that you need to be mindful of, which I'll actually explain once we are on the network config page. So let's jump onto the network config page. Okay, so now I'm actually on one of my Windows PCs, and so the next thing that we're going to do is open up a web page and type in the IP address of the router, so we can configure our share, which will actually allow us to access that share from any device across our network. So obviously the first thing that you need to find out is what is the IP address of your router. Now in some cases you might find it on a sticker that's stuck underneath your router. Depending on how the router's been configured, it'll most likely be a Class C address, and most of the routers that I've actually seen or you'll come across would have it would be on the 192.168.1 network subnet. But if you're still not sure, the quickest way that you can actually find out the IP address of your router is by opening up a command prompt. Or what you do is you press the Windows Start button and type CMD and open command prompt, and then you click IP config to find the IP address of your machine, and it will also tell you the IP address of your router. So now I've typed IP config, and here, as you can see, that's the IP address of my PC, and under default gateway I've got this address here, which would be the IP address of my router. So as you can see, the IP address is 192.168.10.1. Now if I were to open a web page and type that IP address, 192.168.10.1, it'll take me to the logon page of my router, and as you can see, it's asking me for the password. Now I highly recommend that you change your password, use a custom password, and do not use the generic passwords like admin or password. Always have a complex password, and if you can, please change it every now and then to ensure maximum security. So I'm going to type in the password, which will now take me to the the home page. Now, obviously, depending on your router or the brand of router that you be using, this will probably look a bit different. But as I said, the basic concept and the basic principle is the same. So right at the very start, we can see that we have an icon that says USB disk, and it's lit, and it's got the number one on it, which means we have a disk plugged into it, and the router has in fact detected the drive. So what we need to do now is to actually configure the share, and if we click the USB settings, you can see it's detected the drive. That's the drive model, and obviously it's more than one folders or partitions on the drive. So what obviously the biggest one being the 237 gig partition, and with 207 gigs of free space. And so obviously on here we actually have a limited number of options. So one thing that I would recommend is highly recommend is to have authentication set up for your shares, and I'll show you what I mean by that. And to actually sort of explain as to why you need authentication is because, let's say that if you got mates, or if you got any people or any external non-family members who do access your network frequently or even occasionally, and let's say that if they were to come in, or if they were to bring in their laptops or machines to your house, they will actually be able to access that share. So obviously I highly recommend setting up a authentication, so only specific people who are supposed to have access to that share or those files will be able to view them. And so the way we're going to do that, we set up that authentication, is by going into the advanced options and then clicking on, and as you can see, there's a USB setting options. So we come here, and there's the USB settings, and on here you can see that we have those same three partitions, but ideally, just by looking at them, these are most likely, because the hard drive that I'm using, I've actually pulled it out of one of my PCs, and these would most likely be system files or some system Windows partitions, and we don't want them shared. So what I can simply do, because this actually gives us finer details, the advanced option gives us finer detail and finer control over our share. So we'll just I'll just disable these two, and to ensure that when we do try and access our hard drive, our share, all we'll see is this partition here, the biggest one. So to actually set up the authentication, we then go into sharing access, and now this page is the most important page, and as you can see, now we've only getting volume SDA3, so which means that only this partition here and this folder here will be shared out. The other two, the smaller ones, won't be shared out. And also you can see this has a lot more finer details that we can control. Now, just so if we read through this, you can see content share requires a sharing account. You can use a login account or create a new one. Now, I would highly recommend keeping the share, the credentials and the router credentials separate, obviously, again, because of that whole discussion around security. I mean, if just the way things sit, we can simply go to our share and access it using the router, the default router credentials, but we don't want that. We want to set up dedicated credentials for the share. So we click use new account, and as you can see, this is already populated, because this is I already had credentials set up to purely for the share, the SMB share, to access the SMB share. And these are the credentials that you're going to be using, or you're going to be typing in when you try to map this share to any device at home, whether it be your Android box, your TV, your laptops, PCs, or any other device. So obviously I already know these credentials, so obviously you're going to need a username and a password. I already know this username and password, so because I had set it up previously. So what I'm going to do is hit save. Now in here there's a couple of other options which you need to be mindful of. Now as you can see, we've got the FTP and this media server. So this media server is what is commonly known, or more commonly known in the industry, is as DLNA. So DLNA, if in case you already didn't know, was actually a popular method of accessing media within a network. So with a lot of these smart TVs, and especially smart TVs around the mid 2000s, like the 2010 10s era, actually had this feature. And what it does is it simply sort of publishes or publicizes the media onto these devices. So these devices can detect if this service is running. They can just, they'll scrape your media, they'll detect your media, and then you can simply play the media on any of those smart devices. But again, coming back to the reason it's disabled, and I would actually recommend, there's a big debate around the safety or the lack of safety around DLNA, and I actually would personally recommend that you do not use DLNA, because the smart devices these days, they can easily, they've got the option, they are truly smart, and they can quite easily access SMB shares. So I would recommend not using this feature, and that's why it's unchecked. And I also would recommend that you not use the FTP service, because again, there's, without going into the turning this into a big debate, there's also, security questions and factors around FTP. So all we need at this point in time is to access our share our data, our files, using the SMB service, so which is enabled, as you can see. So and then if once we've finished here, we should simply be able to access our media by typing in this friendly name onto the address bar of our file explorer, which you'll see in a minute. And what I'll do is just, even though settings are already saved, I'll still hit save, and this no need to change anything on here. So now it's actually the moment of truth. So I'll just simply copy this and type it in my file explorer, and as you've noticed, as you can see, it is not working, and this in fact isn't supposed to happen. But actually, that's another good troubleshooting tip that I'm going to give you, because I literally installed Windows on this machine today, and sometimes what happens is, for reasons that are completely unknown to me, I'm not sure of, is that the SMB service, for some reason, when you install Windows, when you install a new copy of Windows, is not enabled by default. So the way you actually enable that feature is by going into going to the search bar and typing in the word features, feature, and then which will give you this option here, turn Windows features on and off, and you click that, and this will give you this pop-up box. And what you do is you scroll down and until you see SMB 1.0 CIF file sharing support, and as you can see, it is unchecked. So what you want to do is you check this box here, and which will also check these subcategories, and hit OK. And unfortunately, you will be required to restart the machine once this is completed, and so we'll have to come back and try accessing our share again once the machine is restarted. So let's do that. Hey, so here we are. The PC is restarted. So now, of course, we're gonna try again and access our network share. So we'll do that. The easiest way to do that is to type in the name of our share, which, I'm sure you'll recall, was NAS. So that's what I'm going to do here. So you just type \\, NAS and hit enter. And as you can see now, it's taken us to this folder here, and this icon is a clear sort of reminder, sort of telling you that there is a network share. It's not a normal folder. So what we do now is we'll double click it, and this will ask us for our credentials, and it's asking us for our credentials. So what we want to do is type in our credentials. Obviously, since we're on a Windows machine, we want to make sure, because if you don't want to go through the hassle of typing your credentials every single time, you would just check this box. But on the flip side of the coin, if you're copying something for, again, someone who's not supposed to have regular access to your share, then you simply do not check this box. But we are going to check this box in this case, and just type in the password. And once I hit OK, we are now in the share. So as you can see, as I mentioned, I actually pulled out this hard drive, the hard drive we're using for this video, out of one of my PCs. So that's why you see all of these Windows files on here. I'll just do a quick test because that's a Windows machine, a Windows file. That's probably why it's not letting me into those folders. But if we try to create a new folder, you can see here it is working, and we'll just call it test, and here's test. And now if I were to try and copy something from this test folder, like see if I can find any pictures. Can't find anything. Let's just create a quick notepad file, and I copy it in there, and it is saved in that folder. So there you go. That is how you can set up a NAS / file share file server at very little or close to nothing. Okay, so now that we have a brand new flashy share all set up, and we know that we can access it, the next thing that we're going to do is to actually map it to a drive letter. So it's easily accessible, because obviously typing in and manually navigating to the share is actually going to test your patience, and so you obviously don't want to do that. So the way we do it, so the way you can map it to the share drive, so it'll always be there and will be assigned to the same drive letter. So of course, first thing you want to do is just navigate to your share. So \\, NAS, hit enter. We're at our share. It's actually quite easy. Just right click on the share and then select map network drive. Now this will give you a on here you can select any of the drive letters that are free. All of these drive letters are actually free. So what we'll just select N, stands because it stands for NAS. I'll just select N and hit finish. So what this will do is, now if we go back into the root directory of PC, you'll see that we have a shiny brand new drive mapped under our network location. So that's our shared drive. And now the next time we restart this PC, this drive will still be there. And the good thing about having this the share assigned to a drive letter is that you can have your applications save data directly onto this share. Now the most obvious one that I can think of on the top of my head is your torrents. So if you want your torrent files saved directly onto the share, you just point your torrent, your save location, set your save location to this share here, to this share drive, and the data and will allow in your media or whatever files will save directly onto this share. Now, one thing that's obviously can be a bit sort of intimidating is to actually have all of these files. So if you got more than one folder, what if you only need to access a specific folder? You only need to map a certain folder. You can actually, there is an option to actually map like specific folders, because obviously as you can see, this folder here takes us directly into the root directory. But what if we just wanted to map the test folder? So what in that case, what you need to do is type the address of the share, go into the share, and then let's go into the test folder, or the folder that you want to map, and click on the address bar, and then simply copy the entire file path, and copy that, come back into this PC, right click on this PC, and then select map network drive. Now we can select any of the letters, but what we'll do, because just select T, stands for test, and copy and paste the full file path, and then all we do, because it reconnected sign in with this, ensures that the next time you restart this PC, the share will still be there, or every time you restart your PC or shut it down, the share will be remapped automatically. So what I'm do is hit finish, and there you go. So the folder, the share has been mapped, and it's, as you can see in here, instead of going into the root directory, it's come straight into the actual folder that we want it to go to. So in this case, if you do not want the root directory, you can simply disconnect, and now all we have is this folder here. Now, just a quick last thing which I should mention. You probably noticed that I'm actually accessing the share using a friendly name, but I mean, again, depending on how your router is set up, some people, or you might actually struggle to find, or you might find yourself having difficulty in actually finding the folder, or it might come up with some sort of weird error. That's probably because of DNS issues, or how your router is configured. So to ensure that it absolutely works, you can, instead of using a friendly name, you can also type in the IP address of your router, which of course is 192.168.10.1 in our case, and it will do the exact same thing and take you to your share. But the only difference is that because we've mapped this directory, we've already previously mapped this directory using the DNS name, the friendly name. If you try and access it with the IP address, you will have to re-enter the credentials. So we'll do that now, and then it'll be business as usual. There you go. So that was it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you got any comments, constructive feedback, or if you got any requests, or if you're not clear about what we've actually gone through in this video, please feel free to leave comments in the comment section, and I'll be more than happy to help or assist. So once again, thank you for watching, and please do consider subscribing to the channel and hit the like button, and I'll see you on the next one. So thank you so much for watching.